Creepy story. Growing up, I lived in the middle of the woods. No neighbors for about a mile on each side, and we owned 60 acres of forest, then a swamp after that. So basically I lived in the middle of nowhere. One summer when I was about 14, I was out in the middle of the woods playing with my dog. I'm an only child, and both of my parents were out of town. When I kept feeling something hit my elbow. I'd go to throw Max's ball, and the bump would make me throw it almost straight up. Assuming it was just me bumping it on trees or something, I ignored it. After the fourth or fifth time of it happening, I thought, well, this sucks, I'll just go home. Walking back I felt uneasy, but I knew I was just freaking myself out because we were alone. About an hour later, Max and I are at home on the couch when the garage door opens and he starts barking. I hop up to go let in my mom or dad, even though they were home really early. I peered through the peephole and saw the door was still shut and no one was in the garage. Quieting Max down, I opened the door slowly and called out for my dad. Nothing, no response at all, so I go out to check the door, and it's still locked. Okay, sure. Weird, but oh well. Max heard it too, so at least I know I'm not crazy. About 20 minutes later I hear the door open again, and this time Max starts growling like crazy. I quiet him down again and just assume it's the wind or something making noise, even though by this point my heart is racing. I hear footsteps come up the stairs and think, oh geez, Dad really is home this time, and hop up and run to the door. It starts to jiggle, so I run faster to let him in. I peep through the hole, and even though my hand is loosely around the jiggling handle, there's no one on the other side of the door. Terrified, I go hide on the couch with all the lights on. Max is still growling. About an hour after that I start to feel a little better, even though I'm still terrified. Then I hear the door handle jiggle again. This time it was Max jiggling it. He needed to go outside, and the only way outside is through the garage. Fantastic. I literally sprint with him to the kennel, and as I'm standing in there I decide to ask this thing questions to make myself feel better, because I knew it wouldn't answer me. Thinking about what to ask it, my eyes are drawn to the huge heavy oak door on the kennel. It was always open because it was too heavy for me to move easily. I said, okay ghost. If you're real, you'll shut this heavy door. Nothing. A minute goes by, nothing. Max is still sniffing around. I turn around to yell at him to hurry up, and then, from behind me I hear click. I whipped around and saw the giant door had swung shut and latched. Okay. Clearly it was just the wind. It wasn't really windy, but it was the wind for sure, had to be. I proceed, okay ghost, that was the wind. If you're really real, you'll open this massive door back up. Nothing. I relax a bit, and then, squat down with my head in on my knees, reminiscing about how lame I just was being scared when I hear click-clack. The door was now wide open. Max was done, so we booked it back into the house, locking every door in the house. For the next 4 hours I would hear the footsteps on the stairs and the door handle jiggling every few minutes, until finally around 11 p.m. my dad walks in and yells at me for wasting electricity. I never told him or my mom about it until about 4 months later, when my dad came in from hunting after dark. He looked shaken and I asked him what was wrong. He said he aimed at 2 deer, but missed both completely because it felt as if something was hitting his elbow and making him shoot way above the deer. That's when I told him everything. Amnesia. Also posting this here for y'all. Growing up I saw things. My mom pushed it off as it was just imaginary friends, like all parents do. But after a while she started realizing it wasn't that. I had turned 9 and I had an agonizing fear of things following me and seeing things everywhere. My mother started taking me to church, but sadly that didn't help. After a while I stopped talking to her about it. I just didn't want to bother her about it. I grew in agony as these things kept bugging me. Fast forward 4 years later, when one day a new one appeared. A lady with long black hair, dressed in white, skinny as all get out. I never saw her real face since it was always covered by her hair, but she seemed like one of the nicer hallucinations I had. The lady just sort of followed me in the waking and dream worlds. In my dreams I'd forget what we'd do, but I knew she was there. After a while I started calling her Amnesia. That's just how I referred to her. I never really thought anything about it until one day in May in 2016. I was 15 then. I had come back home from a band concert, and everyone in my family was outside along with the other people who were staying with us. Smoke was coming out of the house and all the lights were off. I ran out of the car and asked what was happening. They explained that our 2 dogs were barking at something in the hallway. Heaven, a girl staying with us at the time, had went to go see what was happening. In our hallway stood an 8-foot-tall shadowy male figure. She had screamed and got everyone. Her stepdad started smudging and blessing the house. While I was outside, I stared, talking to one of Heaven's sisters about the figure. I explained that I had a hallucination that fit the description. I called him Dream Taker. After I had said that, Heaven's sister had me tell my mom everything. About my dreams, my hallucinations, everything. When I told her about amnesia, all the color in her face went cold. She told me that after I was born she had taken me home to our apartment at the time. One day she had put me in my crib and then went to go lay down for a bit. Just to be clear, my mother's bedroom was just across the way from mine, and she could see my crib from her bed. She had fallen asleep for a while when she was suddenly awoken to what sounded like someone walking in the hallway towards her room. Her blood ran cold, all she could do was look in horror. There in the hallway was a pale, skinny lady. She had charcoal black hair that was a tangled drape over her face. She slumped over while walking as her white tattered dress dragged behind her. She started walking into my room and my mother immediately started to get up, but she couldn't. She felt as if an invisible force was binding her to the bed. The lady stopped and turned to look at my mother. Her hair swept from her face to reveal a face my mother could only describe as terrifying. She had no eyes, they were black voids that seemed to pierce through my mother's eyes. Her jaw seemed broken and hung open, and a reddish-black ooze dripped from it. The lady let out a high-pitched screech, and I started to cry in my crib. The lady turned back around to my crib. She struggled as she listened to my screaming. Then I stopped, everything was silent. Her thoughts ran through her mind, she couldn't think right. After a while she could finally get up. She ran into my room to check on me. I was sound asleep like nothing had happened. She grabbed a bat and searched the apartment to find nothing. Everything was the same as it was. She grabbed our phone and called our neighbor. "Hey, did you hear my baby cry? She was just crying a little bit ago. What are you talking about? Your baby wasn't crying. Is everything okay?" I didn't know what to think. Was this lady a blessing or a curse? My mother also told me my grandma dwelled in black magic, and it could be a byproduct of something gone wrong. But who knows, honestly? I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. Scary stories. Got any horror stories to tell? I'd love to hear your experiences. I've got one of my own, as well. One night, when I was around 6 years old, I had woken up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water. I had gotten off of my bed when in the doorway, down into the living room, I saw this tall, dark figure. He was just barely taller than the doorway, and had long sharp claws that extended to its waist. I didn't make a single noise, instead I tiptoed into my brother's empty room, and slept there for the night. The next morning I told my mom about it, and she said that I was making stuff up. Sure, I was young, but I knew what I saw. To this day I don't even know what it was. But I knew it was real. Someone tried to break into my apartment when I was sleeping. Someone just tried to break into my apartment when I was sleeping. So about 2 hours ago, I was sleeping alone in my apartment. It was around 1:35 in the morning, and I heard something at my door, like someone knocking or something. Sleepy like I wasn't sure if it was in my dreams or not. I started to be nervous, like who knocks at someone's door at 1:35 in the morning. So I stared at the door from my bed. I'm in a small apartment with no bedrooms. I waited a few seconds to see if I was just dreaming or not. All of a sudden, I saw my door shaking as I heard a big bang sound like someone just kicked at my door. I got up from bed quick, then 2 big kicks at my door again. As I was getting up, I ran quietly to the door in panic, and I heard someone say, "This door must be very well locked," and walked away. I called the police and it took around 5 minutes before they got here. I described the situation to the policemen, but they couldn't do anything since I didn't see who it was, or because there was no witness that came out of their apartments, but the door is clearly slightly busted, in my opinion 2 more kicks, and here they were in. One thing the police noticed though is there were no footmarks in neither of the 2 exits. Living in Canada with all the snow can help sometimes. So basically, the guy who did that lives in one of the other 11 apartments in here. I've been living here for the past 6 months, and I haven't spoken to a single neighbor yet, but it's scary to see one of them tried to break into my apartment. I don't know what to do now. I can't sleep. I'm too stressed out and scared. I'm knock at my 2 nearest neighbors to ask them if they saw or heard anything, but I think there's absolutely no chance I'll find out who it was. If that person is crazy enough to do it once, he might be crazy to do it again. Any advice? This is my first Reddit post ever. BTW update. After some research this morning, my neighbor in front told me it was him. He denied it at first, but after insisting on how is it possible that he didn't hear a single thing, he told me he did it. He was apparently hallucinating, probably on hard drugs, and thought his old friend was still living in here, so I don't know why, but he tried to get in. I bought 2 extra locks and a baseball bat as well. I don't think I'm gonna report him. He's a sad old man, probably in his 50s, so I won't put more oil in the fire on this one. If he ever come close to doing it again though, I won't hesitate to go to the police again, but I think he got the lesson after we talked. What's weird is every time I've seen him before he looked like a nice old man. I guess you can't judge a book by its cover.